Okay, so essentially what we are going to be doing today is using the proper proportions and techniques that we learned yesterday on Monday and draw 4 different poses using accurate sizing of each body part. So in front of you at the table, we have posable mannequins. I unfortunately only have 16, so I do not have enough for all of you. However, we can share between 2 or more people. If you are sharing a posable mannequin, you can easily just take turns. So one person poses the first pose, another person poses the second pose, and you can just alternate back and forth until you have 4 poses. Essentially, KVA, I have posted 4 mannequins for you to draw. It starts out more simple with a walking person, and then it gets a little bit more advanced with more bent limbs and running. And then you have dancing or skipping. And then I found one that's breakdancing. So you guys are going to be drawing those photos from Canvas. So you will need to access your Art1 Canvas modules and go to the 126 body proportion day 2 posing proportion lesson. I am going to teach you the first pose, so you can walk through it with me. I'm essentially just going to do my best to match this mannequin to the mannequin that's up on the screen. Face to face, you guys are more than welcome to do that as well if you would like. But we're all going to be doing this together anyway, so... anyways, so I have my little mannequin that matches. I'm going to be using him, matches that picture up there, so everyone is on the same page. Okay, so essentially what we are going to be drawing today is called gesture. Gesture is when you quickly mark in the movement or the action of the pose. And the easiest way for me to sketch in action of a pose is by drawing a couple of things. So that is going to be the head, neck, and spine. So I'm just booting up my hover cam. Even though this mannequin is in a different pose, we're still following the same proportion and the same features for the drawing. So essentially what I like to do is think about, first and foremost, do the arms go above the head? Okay, so do the arms go above the head? No. So do I have to worry about leaving space above the head? No. So essentially, when I sketch this in, you are going to be drawing a head near the top of the box. The other thing you have to take into consideration is the direction that the head is going. So this head is a little bit tilted. So the best way that I can draw that is by sketching a small circle. And then I can use my pencil to find the angle of the head and then draw that straight vertical line on an angle. So you can see up here. I wonder if I can split screen this. Let's see if I can figure that out. Okay, sweet. So you can see that I have the circle of my head, and then I've drawn a diagonal line which matches this diagonal in the head. So I've already made the head appear tilted. And then I can just draw in the jaw and sketch in the jawline and give my character the head. The next thing that I like to draw is the neck and spine to symbolize what the back is doing. So right now in this reference, we see that our mannequin is a little bit bent over. So instead of having a straight line, what type of spine should we draw? A little bit of a curved or bent line. So I'm just going to go in and do my best to sketch the direction of that spine. Now at this point, we know that the upper body from the hips to the top of the head is how many heads high? It's half of the body, so how many heads high is the torso? A little bit more. 4. So if the head makes up 1, then that means that the body is going to be 1, 2, 3 heads tall, right? So you still need to make sure that your spine is the right length. So always think about proportion. So measuring your head and making sure that your spine is the right length. Once we have that in, we know that our neck is about half a head tall. We know that our rib cage is about 1 head tall. And we know that our rib cage is about 2 heads wide. So you just take those measurements and kind of mark them in. And then you can sketch in your rib cage portion of the torso. And then we will draw in the hips. The next thing that I like to draw in is the angle of the shoulders. Shoulders are not always just straight across, because if I bend my spine to the left, my shoulder line is now on a diagonal, right? So you need to make sure that you are measuring the angle of the shoulders and sketching that line in so you have the right movement. So on our proportional drawing of our figure, we drew the line horizontal, but because my mannequin is tilted slightly and bent over, the shoulders are going to be at a different angle. All right. Then we're going to mark in where the shoulder joints are and where the hip joints are. Now, at this point, our limbs are doing things in this pose. So what I like to do is use my pencil, and you guys can do this too, but I hold my pencil up, similar to what we do with the candy. I hold my pencil up and I find the angle of the upper arm. And once I have that angle, I can sketch it in lightly right here. We know that the elbow goes down to the belly button, so we need to make sure that that elbow is the right length. And then again, using your pencil, figure out the angle or diagonal of the lower arm and sketch that in. And then we have the hand, which is kind of going up like this. So at this point, remember your shoulder is a ball and joint, a ball and socket joint. So your arm can literally do almost any movement from your shoulder, not all movements. And then your elbow hinge joint can bend up and down. So we can make this line go out any direction. Again, use your pencil to measure the angle of the arm, sketch in the direction of the upper arm. Now at this point, I can't use my belly button as a guide. So what I can do is go from the shoulder to the belly button and take that measurement and then make sure that my upper arm is the same length. So I might have to do a little bit of measuring here in order to determine that the arm is the correct length. And then I'm going to add my elbow. I'm going to figure out the angle of the lower arm. I didn't leave enough space, so I am going to go out of my box a little bit, but that's okay. And then I have my wrist and then the hand. So at this point, we should have the upper body, and it should appear as though his arms have some movement to them. Now, in reality, our arms should be the same length. So if you measure those two arms, we have to make some adjustments if the arm isn't proportional to the other arm. So you may have to make some slight changements and adjustments, but keep in mind that it's a lot easier to change the length of a line than it is to have to erase a whole body part and have to redraw it completely with shading, detail, and everything. All right. The legs are the same way as the arms. We have to figure out what angle the thigh comes out of the hip joint. And then we are just going to draw in that angle. We're going to measure the head, make sure that the thigh is 2 heads tall. Make sure the shin is 2 heads tall. And then draw in your foot. We know that the foot is the same length as your forearm. So just make sure your foot is the same length as that part of your body. And then we have our back leg, which is going to go back on an angle. We're going to have the knee. Looks like my calf is going to go off the drawing a little bit, but that is okay. All right. And that's kind of how you go in and block in a gestural stick drawing of a character. The one thing that you want to remember when you are drawing a gesture is you start with a circle for the skull of the head. You figure out the angle or tilt of the head. You draw in the gesture of the spine. You draw in the angle of the shoulder and the angle of the hips. So you want to make sure that you have those main figures and movements of the head, spine, shoulder line, and hip line before you do anything, so that you can make sure that your pose or figure matches your drawing. Okay, does anyone have any questions? All right, so for the remainder of class, you are going to create your own poses for your mannequin. You may have to share, that is okay. Just take turns posing. Be mindful that your poses, I would keep them a little bit more simple, but change the limbs and the spine up. I want you to have some movement to the pose, but be mindful that doing an overcomplicated pose can get a little bit more difficult. Before you go posing your mannequin, I do want to talk to you about a couple of things. These guys can do a lot of different poses, but they do have their limitations. The first thing that you can do with your mannequin is change and tilt the head. The neck is a joint that you can change because it is a part of your spine. You might be able to feel a little bit of resistance in there. That is because the interior is made up of wire and strings. So please be careful with not overexerting the twist or tilt. We don't want to break anything internally. The waist is the other part of your mannequin that you can change. You can make it go side to side, forward and back. So that can help change the angle of your spine. Your arms can do like a full windmill. They can go out and up. They can do a lot of things, but reaching across the body and behind the body is a little bit more limiting. So try not to force anything. The elbows bend on a hinge. So be careful with trying to bend it a direction that doesn't work. And then the wrist also does twist to change the position of the hand. The legs are unfortunately even more limiting. They can reach forward and they can reach back. They can also, they cannot like rotate out. So try not to force anything. The knees can bend down and up, but that looks broken. We want to make sure that our pose looks as realistic as possible. So try not to overextend your joint or your knee joint the wrong direction. So yeah, you can play around with posing. Be careful and mindful of the limitations of the mannequin. Try not to overexert it and be gentle with it. There are a lot of cool poses that you can do with the wooden mannequin. So have fun, explore, be careful with your work getting too complicated. I do want to talk to you about one more thing, and that is called perspective. I did not really go into this a whole lot, but if you compare these two thighs, they're the same length, right, in our heads. We know that our legs are the same length, but perspective is the way we see something. So this leg is long, or this thigh is long, but compared, do you see how this thigh is about half the size? That is because the knee is coming towards us, which changes the perspective that we see the size of this object. So if you are drawing mannequins with objects coming towards you, the pose is going to get a little bit more complicated. So just be mindful of that while you are drawing. Anyone have any questions? All right, cool. Good luck. I will be around if you need anything. KVA, you guys are going to be drawing the 126 body proportion day 2 lesson. I have 4, we already drew this if you drew with me, but we have 4 poses that I selected for you to draw. If you are not a fan of these, you are able to go search your own. You can just type in wooden mannequin pose and you'll get a bunch of other poses that you can choose from. But I personally selected these for you because they go from easy to easy medium to hard. So good luck. Let me know if you have any questions. And we are going to turn these in for a grade. I am thinking this due date might be tomorrow. So you have 4 different poses that you need to draw.